Hey guys, this is Mac again, and welcome back to my channel. I really appreciate you joining me today for episode 5 of the 3-Gun Life series. And in today's episode, I want to talk to you about 10 things that you need to expect and prepare for at your first 3-gun match. If you're a beginner and you're a little nervous about getting out to the range and trying this awesome new sport, today's video is for you. Now to get started, always remember that 3-gun is supposed to be fun first and foremost. And the most important part of that is being safe. Pretty much any range you go to and any type of competitive shooting discipline is going to put a priority on safety. One of the first things that you'll encounter at the match or at the range that morning is the safety briefing. This is also where the match director will explain how the match works, the type of rule set that they'll be using, how the targets will be scored, and what particular safety rules that range employs, because most ranges are different. There are, for instance, particular places where you can take your pistol out of its case and put it in its holster. These are usually called safe areas. You need to ask where those are if you don't know where they are, and that'll usually be covered in the safety briefing. So make sure, for absolute sure, if it's one of your first times out at the range and at a match, that you pay particular attention during this meeting at the beginning of the day on the first day of the match. And don't be scared to ask other people if you don't understand something. And as always, at least the matches that I've been to, questions are welcomed. So if you have a particular question, no matter how simple you think it might be sure to raise your hand and ask it, because more than likely someone else is wondering the same thing. Second, and what I believe is one of the biggest issues that holds people back from getting started in 3-gun, is to not worry about what everyone else thinks of your shooting performance. I went through this when I started as well. I was so focused on looking good for everyone else around me that it really hampered how well I did in the match. I can 100% promise you that nobody else there at that match is honestly paying attention to how you're shooting. They're not focusing on the small details or looking at your times or even worrying about the penalties that you might get. They're primarily focused on themselves. I'm at the point now in my shooting that when I go to a match, I'm only focused on my performance. And how I finish in the match is not a reflection on all the other shooters, but it's directly a reflection on how I do. So just forget about everybody else. If this is something that's holding you back from going out to your first match, is being worried about what others might think, cut that loose, man. Get out there and shoot and just focus on yourself. The third thing, and something that's really become important to me more recently, is eating and drinking enough throughout the course of the match. If this is a one-day match that you go to, you might feel a little tired at the end of the day. But when you go to a 2 or 3 day major 3-gun match, staying hydrated and keeping food in your system becomes even that more important. Because if you shoot 6 or 8 stages a day and you haven't been drinking enough throughout the day, those last couple of stages you're going to suffer and your performance is going to suffer. I've done it personally myself, where when I'm driving home after the match, I just feel terrible. So after listening to an interview with the Army Marksmanship Unit, who recommended drinking a gallon of water throughout the day at a match, I've started doing that, and it is a really helpful tip. I feel much better when I shoot a match. I'm much better hydrated, and my performance doesn't fall off through the day. I also pack snacks to eat throughout the day at the end of stages while I'm resetting targets. And I also bring my own lunch, because quite honestly the food that you get at a match is quick and easy, but usually not the healthiest. So I've completely rethought my diet and the drinks that I drink throughout the day at a match. I also include usually some Gatorade, and I really try to avoid caffeine. Number one, because the caffeine ramps up your heart rate and it can make your performance a little bit more difficult. And also, it's a diuretic. It makes you get rid of all that extra fluid just that much quicker. So really pay attention to your diet and nutrition and hydration throughout the day of the match. Now, I briefly mentioned this earlier, but the fourth point I want to touch on is that it's okay to ask questions. In fact, I make it a point to pretty much ask the RO right before I shoot a stage just what I can and can't do. You really have to pay attention during each stage description for the actual rules of each stage. Sometimes there's going to be places you have to shoot from or positions that you need to get in and out of. Sometimes there are rules that are meant to be bent or slightly broken, and that's okay in 3-gun. We call that gaming a stage. But all of that's going to be spelled out in the stage description. If there's any gray area there, that is the time to ask questions. Usually the answers will be right there in the written stage description or from the range officer or the RO himself. So again, like I said, to get the right mental picture, usually the last thing that I do before I tell the RO I'm ready to begin my stage is I simply ask him any last minute questions that I have about how I can shoot that stage. Can you fire from the starting position with your heels on the mark?
Do whatever you want, yes. Okay. Just have to start there and then fire within the shooting area.
Port arms?
Port arms, yes sir.
Okay, let's rock and roll. And this just plays right back into what I mentioned about asking questions at the safety briefing. 3-gunners generally are a very receptive community to people who are new to the sport, and people are usually very, very helpful to answer your questions if you have them. So don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be the shy guy in the corner. If it's your first match and you just don't know, go ahead and ask. One of the most helpful tips that you're going to get out of this list is to reload your ammunition into your magazines right after you shoot a stage. I made the mistake early on of shooting a stage, going back and watching the video, trying to figure out what I did wrong, what I did right, socializing with my friends, watching them shoot, and the next thing you know, you're on the next stage and you're on deck and you haven't reloaded anything. And that is the worst possible thing you can do. Number one, puts you in the wrong frame of mind to shoot your stage, makes you very uneasy and nervous, and it can run the potential of making the stage run slow, and most of your other co-shooters don't really like that, and that's understandable. So as soon as you get done shooting a stage, go back and put your guns back in the holders, get all your equipment reset, get all your caddies set on your belt for the next stage, and get all your ammunition reloaded into your magazines, your pistol, your rifle, and shotgun shells back in your caddies. That's what I do every single time as soon as I get done with the stage. Not focus on what I just did, not watch any of the videos that are on my phone. I can do all of that later. As soon as I get done with the stage, I'm 100% focused on the next stage, and that starts with getting your gear ready. And speaking of ammunition, a good rule of thumb is to bring at least 2 times the amount of ammunition that you think you'll need for the match. Most matches will list a minimum amount of ammo for the rifle, for the pistol, and for the shotgun for each match. And if I had to guess, usually this is like 100 to 150 rounds of pistol and rifle, and maybe 50 to 100 shotgun shells. So, as a rule of thumb, I always bring at least twice that much. That way, you're relatively safe and you don't really run the chance of running out of ammo. And to be honest, sometimes there's somebody else there who maybe runs a little short, and it's always nice to be able to help them out. So I've certainly let people borrow or either sold people ammunition at matches because they really truthfully needed it more than I did. Also, for your shotgun, there are usually 3 different types of ammo that we use. There's birdshot, there's slugs, and buckshot. Now, not all matches use all 3 kinds of ammo. In fact, if I had to guess, most 3-gun matches just use birdshot. But it's a good habit to bring all 3 types of shotgun ammo to every single match. So I will usually bring at least 20 to 25 slugs and about 10 buckshot to a match, even if the description of the match says that those types of shells aren't needed. I have definitely been to one match before where I showed up and did not have buckshot, and there were a couple of optional buckshot targets, and I was out of luck. I could have really done a lot better on a particular stage if I'd have had buckshot, but because the description of the match posted earlier didn't say anything about it, I didn't bring it. So that was a tough lesson learned, and now I bring all 3 types to every 3-gun match that I shoot. Now this is a lesson that I learned the hard way at the most recent match I shot. I recently shot a major match at the Area 6 Multi-Gun Championship in Florida this year, and at the end of the match, pretty much any big match you shoot at, you're going to have the opportunity to review your scores. Pretty much all scores now are kept electronically. They're usually posted to a website called Practice Score or something very similar to that. And you have the opportunity to make sure that your scores are correct. Your time, your penalties, all that goes into it. And how you finish in the match is absolutely dependent on making sure those scores are correct. I mean, remember, we all are human. The people entering the scores are human, so mistakes do happen. What happened in my recent match was I didn't check my scores because I thought I had a so-so match. I really didn't think that I did all that great. It was just a very sort of solid and unspectacular match for me, so I didn't check my scores. And originally it showed that I finished, I think, in 32nd place in TAC Ops, which put me fairly far down the prize table, but I had a good time and I really didn't care what kind of prize I got. What I found out after I walked the prize table was that I had incorrectly received a 0 score for one of my stages in the match. And this actually happened to be my best stage of the match. So when I asked the match director to correct the scores, I didn't finish in 32nd place. I actually finished in 19th place, which was my best finish ever in a major and my first top 20 finish, which I was incredibly proud of. And had I checked my scores before the prize table, who knows? You know, maybe I would have got a nicer prize. It's water under the bridge. But one day you might be at a major match and it might be the difference in you getting a big time prize and just getting a so-so prize. So a good rule of thumb is to at least record the time that you get on each stage, plus or minus listing any known penalties that you might have had. And what I like to do is actually just take a picture on my phone of the scoring pad or of the scoring sheet. And that way I can easily pull it up on my phone as a picture. And then at the end of the day, you've got a record of how you did on each stage, and you can compare it to the centralized group of scores on the internet or on Practice Score. It's just a good habit to get into. Some matches still keep physical pieces of paper that have your scores on them, and they'll have you sign it and let you keep a copy of it. That's a good way to do it as well. You obviously want to keep up with those. But if it's electronic, just take a picture of it with your phone, and that way you've got a record of it. Now, if you don't remember anything else from today's video, make sure that you remember this one, number 8, and probably the most important unwritten rule about the sport of 3-gun. Always paste and reset targets. If you're in a squad, you will absolutely endear yourself to your squad mates by being someone who gets out there and repastes and resets targets. The surest way to aggravate someone and make them never want to shoot with you again is to be someone who shoots and then never touches a target and just socializes the rest of the day. Now, 3-gun matches are supposed to be fun, and they are a great way for us to hang out with each other because we're all interested in the same kinds of things. But matches run better if you pitch in and help reset the stages. They run faster, everyone has a better time, everyone's not as tired at the end of the day. And something that most people won't tell you is that you learn a lot about how a stage can be shot by getting out there and resetting the targets. This is something that I definitely do. I make sure I get out there and reset on the first couple of shooters to make sure I know where all the targets are. And for instance, picking up the steel targets to see how hard it is to knock them down, so I know whether I need to use hotter shotgun shells or I can choke up, choke down, etc. So from your first match, from your first stage you ever go to, plan on being a guy who pitches in and helps out and pace and resets targets. Now, a second bullet point on this one, if you're a guy who's new to pasting, make sure that you're pasting targets appropriately. Don't be someone who pastes the target before the RO has scored it, because that is a recipe for disaster. This happened at the most recent major match I went to, where a co-shooter of mine had a really good stage and someone repasted the targets before they had been scored, and he had to have a reshoot. Nobody wants to reshoot. So just make sure that the targets have been scored and then get out there and help out your squad. The next tip, and actually my philosophy on three-gun shooting, is to stay within your comfort zone. Now, initially you might think, how will I ever get better if I never push it, if I never get out of my comfort zone? You're actually much more beneficial to do things in matches that you are comfortable with, that you practice, that you know that you can perform. Mistakes happen when you start to try to get out of that comfort zone and try to do something that's either slightly unsafe or that you can't pull off. This is how disqualifications happen. This is how you get to the point where you're possibly unsafe during a match. And this is how complete disasters of stages happen. I mean, ask me how I know. I've had complete disasters on stages because I was trying to do something that I couldn't do. So pushing your comfort zone is meant for practice. Shooting in matches takes really good mental focus and being completely comfortable. So live in your comfort zone. When you get ready to shoot a stage, block everything out and just get comfortable. Shoot stages the way you feel like you can shoot them best. If you're a good shotgun shooter like myself, and there are optional targets that can be taken with either the shotgun or the pistol, take them with a shotgun. That's what I do, because I know that when I'm shooting my Benelli M2, that I can hit anything out there. Vice versa, if you're a pistol shooter, if you started with a background in USPSA and now you're branching over to three-gun, then shoot that stage with your pistol. You probably feel more comfortable doing that. Don't pay attention to the other 8 or 9 shooters in your squad and just try to do it the way they do it because they're better than you. You do it the way you're comfortable, and I promise you, you'll have much, much better performances on your stages. And finally, just to reiterate number 1, have fun. Remember, this is a game. This is something that we all do because we love it, and it's supposed to be fun. When you get to the point where you are stressing over your performance so much that you're unhappy and it's not fun anymore, it's probably time to take a little step back and reevaluate how you're doing things. I have found that personally I perform much better when I take a little step back, take it down a notch, and just try to have fun and remember that I'm doing something I love to do. Three-gun is a great opportunity to get out there with your friends, with your buddies, with your family, and do something that is a lot of fun in a very safe manner, and continue to do something that we were all born with the right to do, and that's to keep and bear arms. And I can't imagine a better way to do that than the sport of three-gun, where I get to shoot not only handguns, AR-15 rifles, but shotguns, something that I grew up shooting and something that's one of my favorite things to do, shooting my Benelli shotgun. So always have fun. Always remember the impression that you're leaving on someone else. If you get frustrated, it happens to everybody. Just remember, have fun, try to be a good sport about everything, and remember that people are always watching how you react to things. So I hope those 10 tips were helpful if you're thinking about shooting your first three-gun match. Don't just think about it. Don't just go out and watch a match to see if you like it. I can promise you, you're going to love three-gun. So bring your guns with you and get out there and participate and have a good time doing it. Don't sweat the small stuff. Just remember, we all started at the same place that you are, and after a while it'll just be like second nature, and you'll be having the most fun you ever thought you could have shooting your firearms. So once again, this is Mac. I really appreciate you joining me for this series. If you don't want to miss any of the episodes in this series, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, where you'll get an upload like this every Tuesday. And make sure that you don't miss the next 3 videos in this series. Starting in episode 6, we're going to focus on the three-gun rifle. Everything that you need to think about and know about if you're thinking about purchasing or building a rifle specifically for the game of three-gun. Hey, this is Mac again. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next time.